And we are going. What is going on with everybody? It is your boy Eric, aka Young God, coming to you live in the Green Dungeon, giving it to you real raw rugged, and he's matching the background with his green sweater on. But I'm gonna let him introduce himself, man. Who we have here today?
What up, what up, what up? It is the Lefkoe man, Adam Lefkoe, Bleacher Report NBA on TNT Tuesdays. And I'm happy to be in the Green Dungeon. It's a little less musty than I thought it was going to be. For a dungeon, it's pretty good.
Hey, man, I got definitely got like an old 1200 medieval time clock going on back here. So
I
I
do
mean,
like that. I do
it
like
has
that.
to match the scenery. But hey, this is something I've been trying to get a long time. You're definitely one of the people that I feel like top media sports journalists for sure.
I
Uh,
appreciate that.
personally, my top three maybe.
Ooh. Who is in the top three?
I'm
Who
not
am
gonna
I
lie.
with?
I was hoping you wasn't gonna ask that because I really have two. It's you another person. I feel like three sounds such like a better number because I'm including more people.
All right,
Uh,
so I'm top two, but not two. So who is the other person?
you're top two and you actually are two. I'm sorry. you actually are two.
I
you
figured.
actually
Stephen
are
A.
two.
Is that number one?
No, it's actually Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee is definitely
Wow,
my
love
favorite
Pat.
media. I don't know what it is about him. I feel like he's just a very humorous guy, and he definitely intertwines the sports and humor and everything else in very cleanly. And I'm a wrestling fan, and he works at WWE, so that's another
I
thing.
think the thing that I love the most about Pat is he has a spirit of independence.
Mm.
In a world where I think like 10 years ago I saw like new media, like when Twitter first started
Yeah.
popping and like Instagram and all that, and he is so firmly, every time he's on traditional TV it feels like he's invading it and not just on it. And I think a lot of people, when the cameras go on, they play a part, but with Pat, it's Pat everywhere, which is very internet. And that's the way we all are, because that's how younger people, that's how we've been interacting. I love Pat, and I tell Pat all the time, man, you don't need to be on a network. Eventually, you're going to be a network.
Mm.
So get that work.
Well, that's interesting. You bring up him being kind of like, I guess, raw and just unfiltered on TV because I want to like bring that back to journalism. But going back to him before we do that, I would definitely agree. I feel like he has, not unprofessionalism, but it's just super rawness. Like he will go on his
Yes.
like channel and say something that I'm pretty sure he shouldn't be saying. Like he'll bury a sponsor. Or he'll bury like a TV network he was working with and be like, "Yeah, I probably should have said that." And I could tell that's that not media trained coming out of him. Like personally, when I interview people and I can tell they're super duper media trained, hate the
Yeah.
interview because I just want to have a regular
Yeah.
conversation. I don't know if you feel the same way. Have you ever had an interview where the person was overly media trained? Like I feel like I'm talking to a robot at this point.
Here, look, this isn't even. So I interviewed Tom Brady and Peyton Manning leading up to the match that just happened
Mm.
uh, with Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson. And talking to Brady and talking to Manning, it was two different conversations.
Mm.
Like Tom Brady was so relaxed. Like before we started going, he was like, kind of busting my balls a little bit, and then when he wasn't afraid to talk trash because he knew it wasn't good fun. Peyton was fun, but he's so media trained that he would always bring it back to a message,
Mm.
where he'd be like, "That's pretty good trash talk," and you know where else you're going to see great trash talk? Sunday at 3 o'clock, and you're like, "Okay, we get it." And I agree with you. Sometimes it's bad when there's nothing being said, where they don't want to play around, they don't want to give you juicy stuff. It's almost like they think that they're doing you a favor by being there.
Mm.
I think that's the worst. I agree with you. I think that's why I like interviewing really young athletes or
Mm.
really old athletes. Young athletes don't know no better. So they're going to get on there and they're going to be like, "Yeah, my goal is to win the Super Bowl and be MVP." And we're like, "Whoa, this is crazy." And then with really old guys, they don't care anymore. Or they actually have things to talk about and stories. I often find it's that middle ground where in the middle of their trying to achieve greatness, where they don't want to make a mistake. And I understand it, but I still don't enjoy doing those interviews.
That's a fact. The first time I ever interviewed an athlete, it was a Jacksonville Jaguar player, and I was working out with him before we did the interview. So we did like full workout session. I mean, just the most craziest stuff said off camera. We are just going crazy, cussing. Oh fuck you, you the
Yeah,
dick,
yeah.
all type of crazy stuff. Then we go to camera. It's like, hello, how are you doing? I love this. And I was like, whoa, this is
Did you
completely different
call him
person.
out?
Did I?
Because
I
I
can't
do
remember.
now.
You do?
I am like what I really try and do is when I would interview people in person before
Yeah.
this, I never wanted to be in the same room with them for too long unless somebody told me that they were seeming uncomfortable.
Mm.
Because for me, I want all that energy on camera for the first time. And if we were hanging out and then I saw them get tighter, now because I'm a lot more confident in what I'm doing, now I'll go, yo, why did you just switch up on me?
Yeah.
Like 2 minutes ago, because like it sounds like the way your brain works, authenticity is so important to me. And what I don't think people realize is if they are their authentic self and they let the curses fly, like, yeah, you might lose a fan that's 75 years old that doesn't believe you should cuss like that, but you could get so many people that are your truest fans of your truest self. And so it's a battle that we all go through, man, is like wanting to be professional but also wanting to be our truest self, and like finding that middle ground is so key.
I feel like the whole idea behind my interviews are not to feel like interviews. I really
Right.
want them to feel like conversations. Like I don't usually write down questions. I may have like a couple bullet points or a couple things in mind, talking points, but not really like question four. So where did you go to
Yes.
college? You know, I don't want to do that. So I feel like when that person is treating this like a interrogation, like I'm the police, it's like, yo, this is hard. Instead of, hey, we're just
Yes.
on the phone talking to each other, we're in person just talking to each other. So, yeah, I do feel like authenticity is a very good thing. And when I was saying bringing back the professionalism or the media train to journalism, I have a theory that I'm curious to run by you because
Let's
you went
hear
to
it.
college, I'm in
I did.
college, but we're in college for two different things. So I want to run this by you. So
Okay.
you went to college for like marketing, right? Or not marketing, but uh
Broadcast
broadcasting,
journalism.
broadcasting. So my whole thing is I don't want to go to school for journalism because I feel like if I go to school for journalism, I will unlearn things maybe subconsciously and turn me into a different interviewer. And I personally like the way that I'm going right now. So I thought that I would do psychology because I feel like psychology could work way more because not only am I interested in learning the brain and learning people and how they work, but I feel like that really helps when communicating. Like communicating and psychology go right in hand because it shows you when a person's uncomfortable, when a person's doing this, and it really just, I guess, breaks down a person. So I'm just curious what you think
So
about that.
I was a major in broadcast journalism and I was a minor in psychology.
Mm.
And I would say this: you're how old right now?
I just
23,
turned 21.
21.
Yeah.
Um, so I look back, and this is not me saying nothing about you. This is just me telling my own journey. You
Yeah.
can glean whatever you want from it. I look back at where I was at 21, and I remember I had an internship in California, NFL Network, back when Schefter worked there. That's how
Mm.
long ago this was. And I remember looking at other feature producers and stuff and being like, I could do that right now. And I look back now and I go, I didn't know shit.
Mm.
And so what I'm saying to you is, going to broadcast journalism for me, it was sort of like a chef going to France or Italy and learning all of the proper techniques. And like you're in a classroom with like other chefs learning knife skills and like the correct way to do flounder and all this stuff. But then all those chefs eventually leave and it's on you to be yourself. So for me, it's like it was getting that traditional training. I learned how to do framing right when I go and shoot stories. I learned how to put together a story from beginning to end. I learned how to do voiceovers the correct way. It helped me with writing, which I don't write a lot right now, but it impacts the way that I speak because it kind of gives me a structure because I know it. And I think it's you learn the traditional way, and that'll help you freestyle more. And I think that the one thing that I wish I did more was learn other subjects. I went so hard on broadcast journalism that, and I was doing radio shows during it and working on TV programs and stuff too. But I wish that I took like some history classes because what you begin to learn is the more information that you have, the more topics you can speak to. So when I hear someone that has a little bit of a law background talk about the collective bargaining agreement in the NFL, I'm sitting here going, this guy said and that guy said, and then that person gets to go, I read the brief, and here's what it means. And so it's a little bit more. Um, I think that you're going to be able to maintain your identity. The fact that you called me on FaceTime with a cap on, like you are very sure of yourself, and that's never going to change. My thing was, how can I go here, learn their game, and then flip it against them and maintain my identity? Because I think you never want to think that learning anything is going to ruin you. It's more of adding a tool to your belt.
Mm.
That's kind of how I look at it. Where um, I used to need the rush of not preparing and throwing myself out there to get that energy up, and then to finish and go, I nailed it, and I didn't even prep at all. And but then once you do that enough, and you learn that you're capable of that, you begin to realize, if I do a little deep research on this guy, and I don't, like you're saying, never change the way you speak, and never go, okay, question number 3 or question number 4, but it more goes, hey, I noticed that you grew up in this area, and they were kind of known for this. Like, did that impact you in any way? It's learning how to do work and then put it into your voice. Because the number one thing that I see out of young people and of all ages is the red light goes on and they talk different.
Mm.
Or the red light goes on and they sit different. Or the red light goes on and they act different. Or they question things that in real life they would never ask that question. They don't even care about that question. And so it's this mix of refinement, but then also retaining. And it's an interesting line, but I would say don't be afraid to learn strategies, because you're never going to change who you are, and you can use people's strategies against them if you know how they're going to do it. If you know everyone's going to go on this story and they're going to think like this because you were in those classes with them, you can go, I'm not going to think like that. How can I flip this? And then you're like next level shit immediately.
Well, no, I mean, I think that uh, it's always good to be different. I mean, like you said, I just came out here with a blind on, right? So I feel like if you take, because a lot
How
of
do you
people,
know what's different if you don't know it's the same?
that is a good point. I feel like so many people will watch First Take. You bring up Stephen A. earlier, and they watch First Take and they're like, okay, Stephen A. feels like this. Well, I'm going to make an article and feel like they base their opinion off of a perspective that they've already heard. So
Absolutely.
that is a good point. And yeah, I mean, I definitely, I've been doing this for like 5 years now, 5 years, and we feel like a 6 month span where you love where you don't prep and you're like, yo man, this my no prep interview
Yes.
was better than this guy who prepped for a month. I should, you do that. But like you say, when you really do your research on people, it's interesting. And I mean, I was looking up an interview with you, right? And I found this interview just randomly, and this interview you did with this kid Felix Levine, right? And
Yes.
first of all,
Shout out Felix.
shout out to you for doing that interview with him, because that was me discovering him. Really talented guy. I was really,
Yeah.
that was really cool that you
Bust
did
his
that with him.
ass.
That was really cool. And throughout that interview, I should have known you were a minor in psychology, because you were breaking him down. Like you were, I could tell you're probably thinking this, thinking that. So is that something that like interests you outside of like journalism? Is like psychology and reading the mind of people and trying to break them down like that?
I think it's humans are interesting in that they're all different, but they all kind of react the same. We have
Mm.
habits and we have actions where we all go through. But like when you, at this point, I don't even know the amount of people that I've interviewed is probably so huge, because it's not even just podcasts. It's like Bleacher Report would just have me when I first got there doing 30 videos a day, and I would just be interviewing so many different people. And like you're saying, you get these inputs where you see people and you can kind of make minor reads.
Yeah.
And it, it's like very human in all of us to kind of look at people and to kind of, it's like those little minor judgments. But instead of going, oh, that's a good thing or that's a bad thing, in my head I try to go, this is their thing.
Mm.
And the quicker I can understand what makes a person happy or what makes a person sad or nervous or relaxed, I'm trying to get them as relaxed as possible. So I'm reading as many things as I can to open them up. I say this thing a lot when I'm interviewing young people. I curse very early on in meeting them, just to see how they're going to react, But if I know that faith is very important to them, or if they don't curse, then I'll learn that ahead of time and I won't. But when they're young, they're not used to seeing a guy in a chair with a camera on him and then look and be like, "How the fuck you doing?" And it's sometimes it's just an F word um, to loosen them up. I might not even curse the rest of the time, but I'm trying to get them to a level of ease where it doesn't feel like an interview. So reading people is amazing in all situations because, dude, as you go through this, you're going to meet a lot of people that think they're the shit, and you're going to meet a lot of people that are going to tell you things that are going to puff you up, and it's an interesting journey of ego. And you're really trying to read people the entire time to figure out who do I want to spend my time with.
Yeah.
Like when I met D Wade for the first time, I was like so taken aback at how normal he was that like it was like a big dinner where we were supposed to meet and all that, and I just was like, this guy is so relaxed, and this is really who he is. And once I realized that, then I could sit down and go, okay, when I'm hosting this show, now that I know what D Wade is like, how do I get the most out of him? Because when I'm a host like that, now I'm Stockton. Now I'm dishing right and I'm dishing left, and I need to know, like Rondo, where does the ball need to be so that my teammate appreciates it. So it's a different shows, whether it's a podcast, requires different stuff, and the whole time you're learning about people to best use them.
You know, I've always wondered how many people do that because I interviewed a lot of UFC fighters, a lot of black UFC fighters last year. And when I did it, I looked at a whole bunch of interviews. And I was like, no black people ever interviewed them. It's always white people.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to approach this in a very black manner. And everyone that I interviewed, they was like, yo, that was a different interview. Like, I'm so used to talking to these white people, and, like, they don't really understand me sometimes. But, like, I'm like, yeah, I know. So I think that's, I don't know, that's cool you do that. Because I didn't know how many people actually, like, took that approach of, like, I'm going to try to, like, that's cool. And
yeah, because because you don't want it to be an interview either. And not just for the product. Like, you don't want to sit there in a call and response.
Yeah.
I think that the scary thing in our society right now, for me, in terms of athletes and communication, is it's a very one-sided take relationship where I'm going to talk to an athlete, I'm going to ask you questions, and if any of them are newsworthy, I'm going to take that and I'm going to build my brand off of you. And my issue is beyond the fact that like that person's probably never going to talk to you again.
Yeah.
They probably didn't enjoy that because it felt like work to them. But number three, now your entire being is based off of ripping from people, which means that you can't even sustain yourself. You need other people to exist. And so if you can build up your own to where it's conversations, it's a little bit like Charlemagne, where it's like, oh, I want to see someone talk to Charlemagne, not I want to hear Charlemagne get answers from them. And so he's made himself, he needs to be there because his opinions are just as important as the people he's interviewing.
Yeah.
And having confidence in yourself and not relying on sound bites, it's just healthier, man.
Hey, man, I don't know if you have this in your future, but motivational speaking, gotta add that to your resume. You're like, you got the hand movements and everything. You know, you definitely have me ready to run through a brick wall right now, and there's no brick walls by me. So I really hope that's in your future. Also have to shout out you for putting me on my favorite new show right now. You kind of indirectly did it, Detroiters. You kind of shout out the person who made Detroiters. I'm like on the 4th episode of the 1st season. Show's hilarious. I just watched the episode where they were prostitutes for an episode. That episode had me dying. That was like the most hilarious thing of all time.
Have you seen? I think it's time to go with Tim Robinson on Netflix.
That's why I'm watching Detroiters. I'm watching Detroiters to build up to that because it's my first time ever watching anything with them involved. So I want to tell you thank you for putting me on.
I love that kind of humor. Like I'm a huge Rick and Morty guy. I have always been sort of like an Adult Swim guy. Like even when Tim and Eric, like when Tom Green came on MTV to show my age, and Jackass was big. For me, that really felt like the beginning of the internet movement, where the internet is about like jarring zooms and like jokes where you complete, like Eric Andre, like breaking down the fourth wall. And for me, I remember one day in a notebook I wrote down, what is the element of every really successful show, the reason they're great? And I started off with like Ellen, and it was like, you know what? she starts off dancing, and it immediately breaks down like everything because it's just you immediately know it's fun. With Jimmy Kimmel, it was like this notion of you could be getting pranked at any point. Like he could be putting something out there. Jimmy Fallon, he makes his guests feel really calm. And then I started thinking about like Eric Andre, and it was like it's all for the viewer's entertainment.
Yeah.
It's not about making the guest comfortable. He's willing to embarrass himself. It's all for the viewer. And I started realizing that so many of like the great internet people that make content all the time, they care about their audience so much more than the traditional people. Because the traditional people are going, we are telling you what you need to know.
Yeah.
And the internet is like, you guys filled up the comment section and you wanted me to talk to this person, so I did. And it's such a more clean relationship between the two. And yeah, so like stuff like the Troiders and just that mindset, to me, that's like internet comedy, but like really well done. So I'm glad you're enjoying it.
It's a great show, man. And hey, I don't want to keep it for too long. I know you're a very busy man. So you have
I got like 10 more minutes.
You got 10
if
more
you want
minutes?
to use it. Yeah.
Of course, man. Because you said something interesting in that interview with Felix that I'm curious has ever kind of worked against you in the sports world. You said you're the type
Sure.
of friend where you told the story where your friend was dating a girl and had an argument and he was like, ah, don't marry her or whatnot. So
Yeah.
you seem like a genuine person. You said that I seem like I want authenticity. You seem like you want genuineness back. So have you ever has it ever worked against you? Because I feel like in a lot of these music industries and entertainment industries, it's a lot of fakeness. It's a lot of politics. So have you ever expected, I guess, the realness that you were given and it was never given back to you that kind of messed up your mind?
I think it's what's interesting for me, if I was going to be very candid about where I am right now, is I've been in Bleacher Report now six and a half years, I think, and I, for so long, have had the mindset of I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm going to grind. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to do it 100 miles an hour with the best of my ability.
Mm.
And on the internet, it's all about authenticity and stuff. And then I get some of the opportunities where, like, I was going to be on March Madness doing like updates, and then NBA on TNT with Candace Wade and Shaq. And the TV audience is a lot different than the internet audience. But at the same point, I want to maintain my identity because I don't want to be someone that code switches for TV.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, gets really tight because I want to be able to be myself at all moments, not just for the content and for the viewer, but like for myself. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to leave and be like, now I get to be myself again. So that's been hard for me to deal with, which is like, after a game, I'm trying to find out, and this is with practice, what are nicer ways of saying that guy sucked? Because I don't want to get into where the media is a lot, where it's like breaking people down and comparing. It's a lot more in my nature to like want to celebrate the good stuff. But you have those like raw moments where you're like, yo, what the heck was that? Like, that was awful. And so that's an interesting dynamic that I'm trying to figure out right now. In terms of like being raws in interviews, I would say that I really only get upset with myself when I get done and I go, why wasn't I more raw? Why did I hold back? Why did I allow any nerves to get in? For me, I really love going live, man. There's something about, like, I went live for a pregame show for the match, and I'm sitting there and I'm getting ready, and the beginning of the show was all me. It was like 3 minutes of like all these things that I had to explain to the viewer, and they're counting down 7, 6, 5, and the camera guy, I feel him like brace, and I feel like the lights like turn up a little bit. And bro, I'm telling you, when I said this is my shit, like I got calm in that moment, and I enjoy that so much. And it's a constant quest. Like, you're just really kind of beginning it. Like, you've been doing it for 5-6 years, which is great because you're getting early reps. But like, you're gonna do this for a long time.
Yeah.
And you're gonna chase those little moments where you go, I'm nervous, because eventually it's gonna fade. But you're still gonna want moments that make you nervous, and I'm chasing that. I'm constantly trying to put myself in situations where I look across and I go, shit, I'm gonna bring it. Because if I don't, I'm gonna be pissed at myself afterwards for letting that slip.
Well, one thing that I feel like made me a fan of yours was your shows or just you in general. You don't seem like when you get on camera, it's overproduced. I feel like a lot of stuff on TV is super overly produced, and I feel like in your case, like I said, you came from the internet where it's a little bit more raw. So I mean, even when you went viral for the newscast clip or whatever,
Yeah,
that didn't feel like, hey, let's get the white guy to do a whole bunch of rap references. You know what I'm saying? It didn't feel like that. It felt like you really wanted to do that because that felt like something that you felt like would just be funny or feel like it'd just be cool to put out there or whatnot. So for you to make it on TNT now, and I'm watching you, I'm like, yo, this is the same guy that I was watching on Bleacher Report. I was watching on his Instagram. It's the same person. So
yeah.
I just want to say that I feel like that's a real cool thing that you're not an overproduced person, even that you're on broadcast or on big time
I
television.
appreciate that. I think it's interesting because my one issue that I have with a lot of young creators is when they say I want to do it raw. And it's the number one thing that they say they want to do is I don't want it to be as much produced. I would argue that the better you get at producing, the easier it is to really produce something great and not make it look produced.
Mm.
I think that true greatness comes from being so prepped that everyone goes, "Did you make that all up yourself?"
Yeah.
And it's like, no, actually, like I spent the weekend, I scripted it out, I rehearsed it in the mirror, I practiced it, I edited it, and then when I did it, you're like, damn, was that all off the top of your head? And yes, I didn't look at a script, but like I fine tuned it to the point where you didn't even know.
Mm.
It's like expecting that, like, it's like thinking that Chris Rock in his special went up there for the first time. Like Chris Rock, when he puts together a set, goes to small comedy clubs with a notebook and he delivers a joke and then he stops and he writes down about how the crowd reacted right in front of them because it's not about them. Like you can show them the work. No one's going to do the work like you're going to do the work.
Yeah.
But like that's my one thing for young kids is like produce, but then when it's time to make it, don't act like you're making something.
Mm.
Like now it's time to let all of that work calm you down so that you can really fucking kick its ass. That would be my one thing.
And I think that, okay, so for example, with the production and the preparedness, somebody like Desus and Mero. So
Yes.
I was watching Desus and Mero one time, and I don't know where I seen this at, but they were like, yo, these guys are. It was like a late night show host talking about it. It was like, yo, these guys are so good because they're doing a lot of this just improv, and it's kind of just them bouncing off each other. And I didn't realize how much of a talent that was until somebody said that because I was like, everybody can't do that, but
Right.
that's something that's like a super big talent. So for you, when you had the show with Sims, how much of that was like you guys bouncing off each other to like super duper prepared notes all everywhere?
So I went one time very early on and I got a chance to hang out with Ernie Johnson for an entire day. They asked me to present an Emmy with Ernie, and so I had to get there a few hours ahead of time, hung out. And I asked him, I said, how do you and Chuck create that relationship? And he said that Chuck doesn't learn anything. He doesn't know what they're going to talk about at all. All he knows about is the games that are that night. But Ernie gets to the office 4 or 5 hours before everybody else, works with the producers all day, sits in all of the meetings. He has all the info, but Chuck has nothing. So I stole that with Sims. I wouldn't tell Sims anything we were doing until we started recording. But all day, I was producing the show. I would have notebooks full of notes because what I learned from Ernie was if you're with somebody that is an analyst that is supposed to give you insight, like a Chuck or a Wade or a Candace or a Shaq or a Sims, they know everything. And it's our job to tap into that and to take them to places because they truly are better at off the cuff. What I've learned for me is the more prepared I am, the better I'll be off the cuff. So that when Sims would say something, I could go, that's interesting. I looked, and they are, in fact, the bottom 10 defense. Because I didn't play the sport. I'm not a former professional athlete. So in my mind, if I'm not researching and like really knowing this stuff like the back of my hand, why am I there? Because for me as a host, anybody can go, hello and welcome in everybody. It's Tuesday night on TNT. D Wade, Candace, Shaq. Like after doing it a while, everyone can introduce and then have a producer say in their ear, okay, go to D Wade about the Heat and their chances in the playoffs. But it's when D Wade says something that I have all my notes in front of me and I can go, unfortunately, 3 of their next 4 games on the road, that could be tough. Shaq, that little nugget, like, dude, I'm telling you, I will sit down with a sheet with, it's like an open book test with like 60 things on it that could be interesting, and we'll be on TV from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. But like little spurts, I might use 4 of them. So you do all this work, and then you end up using 4 pieces of information, and you crumple it, and then you throw it out, and you're like, you know what, though? If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have had those 4 little nuggets. But all the while, you're also in your head going, was I my truest form? Was I honest? Or did I get a little bit square and like kind of go, like, did I do like that corny news anchor laugh? And I'm just, for me at least, the more prepared I am, the more free I am to relax. Because I know that it's up there in case I need it. That's kind of how I treat it.
It's nothing better than that feeling, like when somebody says something, you're interviewing somebody, you're having a conversation with somebody on TV, and they say something that you prepared for last night. You're like, I just read that. It's like taking a test. It's like when you're in school taking a test, and you see that question on the test, you're like, I just read that same exact thing last night, and it gets you happy. It's like, yo, if I didn't read that, I would have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
To me, there's nothing better than interviewing somebody and they sit back and they go, oh, you did your research. To me, there's nothing better than somebody goes, yeah, you know, the area I grew up in, there was a lot of good hoopers. And you're like, oh, yeah, like this guy, that guy, all from the D.C. area. And they'll be like, okay. And it's not about, like what you said earlier, going, I did my research and here's question number 3. It's not about showing your research like that. It's finding a way to like drop a little gem in your question where it triggers to them, wow, he did work. Because once they see that you did work, they will treat your questions with more respect. Once they know that you treated them with respect, then they're almost like, all right, I'm coming to work. I'm going to work too. I'll give you something.
Well, this is how I want to end it off, because I feel like this goes right to that train of thought. So, on people saying that, wow, like you did your research, I have a question, and I'll go first. But the question is, what's a person or a moment where you impressed somebody you was interviewing? You was like, wow, like I impressed this person. That's really crazy. And for example, I was interviewing this old '70s soul singer named Bobby Caldwell.
Oh my God, I love Bobby Caldwell.
Bobby Caldwell is crazy. The fact that I interviewed Bobby Caldwell, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So first of all,
amazing.
Hilarious interview. It took like 30 minutes up the Skype call because he had no idea what was going on. He was like, so in the interview, I asked him like 3 questions where his reaction. Bobby Caldwell, amazing. So
I love Bobby Caldwell.
He's
That's
great.
Awesome.
He's great. So I asked him like 3 questions where his responses was, wow, I've never been asked that question before. And I'm like, yo, you've been making music
awesome.
for as longer than me and you probably combined, like age-wise. You know, like he's been making music for forever. So the fact that I could ask him stuff where he was like, wow, I've never been asked that before. I'm like, yo, you've been in the industry for a long time and asking new questions. That's crazy. So anything for you where you had that type of moment, like, yo.
This isn't the biggest one. I would have to really rack my brain about that. But the one that came to my mind right away, Kelechi Osemele is an offensive lineman. He was on the Raiders and the Jets and the Ravens. And he's Nigerian, and my fiance is Nigerian. And when he sat down, we started talking about jollof and what is it like growing up with like a Nigerian mom. Because I know what that relationship is like. And he looked at me, and it's funny what I've learned is when a Nigerian person discovers that another person is Nigerian, their way of speech completely changed. So, like if me and my fiance are in the car and we get into a taxi and my fiance can hear in his voice, she'll say something, and then that guy will completely change. Oh, you know what I mean? Like their energy. Like I'll talk to a cab driver if I can tell, if I can see their last name, whatever. And the way it changed everything, and he opened up so much, and it was for me. I wasn't placating, I wasn't pandering. It was more like I know the culture, and I know that like you're from Houston, which is a huge Nigerian population, and I know that every Nigerian mom has no interest in their son playing football. And I said, I know that your mom was disappointed, even though that you're a professional football player and you signed a $70 million contract. I know that your mom was like, your cousin's a doctor. Like I know, and he was like to a T. And when that opened up, it made the rest of the hour so much better. And now me and him will like text and communicate still, because he knows that I was looking at him as a human and his full experience, and not just going to his Wikipedia page and going 65 starts. You know, that's pretty good, man. What do you think of your like bullshit statistics that like mean that are like 1/100th of his life story? And that was just one that came to mind when you were saying it. But in like, I would have to think more. But that's the one that came right away.
And I think that's cool that you make him a human, because that's one thing that I really try to do with people. And I've but the past 2 years, I've interviewed by like 30 maybe porn stars, 30 porn stars, right? And within those interviews, my whole thing is people see porn stars as sex objects, basically. You know, they see them always having sex. So I'm like, you know what? I want to humanize this person. So after you get on this interview, you're like, wow, she's more than just having sex. She's actually an intelligent human. And that's just something I love to do. But
to that, most people, like, sometimes I work with producers and they'll like send me possible questions, and they're like, ask them what their favorite cereal is. And they think that that's going to humanize people if a football player, or in your case a porn star, says, oh, I love Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
And oh, I love Captain Crunch too. And it's like, to me, it's so disrespectful to ask a question that is so meaningless, where like, if I'm using your time, and we really want to do what you say, which is humanize, like really get to like the stuff that they care about, and it's like fears and hopes and dreams and mission statements, and like, because in the end, it's like, what did you gain from it? Like, you're going to talk to somebody, like, what do you want to gain?
Yeah. And
I just think a lot of people are afraid to sit down with a pen and a paper and go, what do I want to know? Because they're afraid they're going to come up with a dumb question. But I always say, come up with 30 and choose 4. You know what I mean? Like, it's better to put a lot and then choose your best, instead of coming up with 4 and being like, that's the 4 we're going to do. So that's, I agree, man. Make it meaningful.
Hey, man, like I said, I appreciate you for stopping by.
Of course, man.
Just something I wanted to do for a minute. And yeah, anything else you have to say before we get out of here, man?
I hope that everybody right now in this time, I'll do this. I want to say thank you to first responders and all the people that are taking care of people, because they're the ones that are really saving our fucking ass right now. But what I will say is, to everybody that's quarantining and that is at home, or that, I think, just know that like, this is hard for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I interviewed last week Charles Barkley and Brian Dawkins, my favorite athlete and my favorite human, and I was miserable. Like, I was like, I don't even know if I'm doing what I want to do right now. Like, I need to figure out a better way to enjoy this. So, like, I know that a lot of people want to get on and be inspiring and say, just do it. But I also want everybody to know that, like, man, the bottom sucks too. Like, even the people at the top right now, and I'm not there. Like, I think I'm somewhere in the middle. But the people at the top right now are restless and are questioning what they're doing and, like, what they stand for. So it shouldn't be like, oh, wow, this isn't like, I'm not going to appreciate when I get there. It's more of like, know that we're all going through it. And as long as you're putting in work that matters to you and you're being honest with yourself, you will be able to achieve that stuff. And then when you get there, you'll have a better appreciation for it. But I just don't want people to think that, like, there's people at the top that got it all figured out, because even the people that are there, man, they're isolated in a bunch of nothingness too right now. So, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to really be brutally honest with myself. I'm trying to look in the mirror every day and go, man, you didn't work out 3 days in a row. You know what I mean? Or like, you didn't really give all your all in that
Yeah.
interview, and not get down on yourself, but like, we really have the opportunity right now to try and create better habits, and also to abandon things that aren't giving you meaning.
Mm.
Like, if you have friends in your life that aren't giving you joy, that are really just causing issues, if you're doing work that you don't find fulfilling, like, now is an amazing time to kind of redirect that energy and to have that really hard conversation with yourself that will likely make you cry, where you just sit there and you go, what do I want to do?
Mm.
And just sit in that shit, man. Don't smoke. Don't play NBA 2K. Don't turn on Netflix. Like, you just need to sit there with a pen and a paper and go, what would make me happy if this was what I was doing and what my day was? And be okay if day 2 and 3 you fuck up and you smoke the weed and you play NBA 2K and you end up scouring Reddit for 6 hours.
Mm.
But in that moment, go, this isn't what I want to do. I'm going to get back on it tomorrow. And what happens is you look up in another 6 years and you go, damn, I just cranked out so much. Like, I can't believe I accomplished that. But forgive yourself. At the same point, know what you're trying to do. Because if you just think you're going to find it one day, you have no idea where you're going to wake up. So sit down, man, and like, really try and plan it out. And then after like 6 months, a year, look at it and go, you know what? Don't enjoy that anymore, but I want to double down on this part. So that's I'm saying this out loud so that like I myself do
Yeah.
it too. Like, I'm not going to act like I got it figured out. Because believe me, I got a to-do list from last week that got shit done. Like, nothing got done. But I want everyone to know out there, it ain't easy for anybody. It's hard for everybody. So as long as you realize that it's not just happening to you. So let's do this. Like, let's come out of this strong as fuck. Let's be superhumans.
And with that being said, if sports never come back, you need to be a preacher. I will attend the Church of
Mhm.
Lefkoe. You're out here preaching. It's funny right now. I have a.
It's the dungeon, man. You know, I get down here and I lose the sun, and so I need to speak rays of light into existence.
Well, hey man, I hope everybody enjoyed that. Hope you guys felt that light. Until next time, I say what I mean what I say. Haters are gonna hate, players are gonna play. You guys holler at your boy.